This video is sponsored by Simba Tasker. More about them later on. Now, many people know about the controversial 100 trillion Zimbabwean banknote, but very few people know about the origins of Zimbabwean banknotes. In this video, I'll share with you the history of Zimbabwe's banknotes from the very beginning. Before Cecil John Rhodes and his British South Africa company set foot in Zimbabwe, the indigenous African population used to trade using a barter system. After the occupation in 1890, the settlers adopted the sterling-based system of the Cape Colony, where the official currency was British pounds, shillings and pences. This arrangement carried on until 1938, when the Southern Rhodesian authorities established the Southern Rhodesian Currency Board as a means of gaining more autonomy over their own currency. Now, this arrangement was not unique to Southern Rhodesia, but was common practice in all British territories at the time. This was called the Sterling Area. Now, it's also worth noting that before World War II, the British pound was the dominant currency in world trade. In the 1930s, the British left the gold standard, where its currency was pegged to gold. Despite the shift, countries in the sterling area kept pegging their currencies to the pound sterling, including Southern Rhodesia. The Southern Rhodesia Currency Board could only print a local currency pegged 1-to-1 with the British pounds, plus they could only print currency equivalent to the amount that they would have deposited in the Bank of England. Now, the first batch of notes released by the Southern Rhodesian Currency Board were the 10 shillings, £1 and £5 notes in 1939. The 10 shillings note was red in color and featured a portrait of King George VI and an image of the Eastern Highlands. On the reverse side of the note was an image of the Victoria Falls and an image of a sable antelope. There was also a watermark of Cecil John Rhodes. This note was printed between 1939 and 1952. The £1 note was green in color with a portrait of King George VI. On the reverse side was an image of Great Zimbabwe, a sable antelope, and a watermark of Cecil John Rhodes. The £5 note was blue in color and had the exact same details as the 10 shillings and the £1 note, except on the front was an image depicting mining, and on the reverse an image of the Victoria Falls, a sable antelope, and a watermark of Cecil John Rhodes. The 5 shillings note was launched on the 1st of January 1943. Its main features was a portrait of King George VI and the Rhodesian coat of arms. On the reverse side, this is what the 5 shillings note looked like. The note was printed between 1943 and 1945. In 1945, the 5 shillings note was redesigned with more detail. Other features on the obverse and the reverse side of the note remained the same. The note was printed between 1945 and 1952. Simba Tasker is an app that connects businesses to customers and customers to legitimate businesses. Gone are the days of hiring blindly. Have you ever hired somebody to do tiles in your home because they were referred to you by a cousin's boyfriend's uncle, and they end up doing a terrible job and it gets weird for everybody? Well, Simba Tasker makes the job of looking for services easy. There's a rating for each service provider. And guess who does the rating? You do, making sure that only the best service providers remain on the platform. With Simba Tasker, you can connect with service providers directly on the app. You're also able to view their business location in case you want to hire somebody nearby. Simba Tasker is your best option if you're in the diaspora. No need to hire service providers through your unreliable cousin. You can do it directly on your phone or computer. Simba Tasker is available on iOS, Android, and there's a web version as well. So what are you waiting for? Download Simba Tasker today, link in the description. Then in 1953, the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland was formed. This meant that Southern Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland would operate as one country. The Southern Rhodesia Currency Board was reconstituted into the Central African Currency Board from 1953 to 1963. Apart from the notes, the Federation also issued its own coins. In 1955, a full set of new coins were issued, with the Mary Gillick obverse of the Queen and various African animals on the reverse. Now, if you want me to do a video on the coins, let me know in the comments below. The first batch of notes to be released by the Central African Currency Board were the 10 shillings and the £1 notes. The 10 shillings note was red in color and had the face of Queen Elizabeth and an image of the Eastern Highlands. On the reverse side, there was an image of the Victoria Falls, a sable antelope, and a watermark of Cecil John Rhodes. The £1 note was green in color, and the note had the face of Queen Elizabeth. And on the reverse side was an image of Great Zimbabwe, with the face of Cecil John Rhodes on the watermark. Now, both of these notes were issued on the 1st of December 1952, and they were printed between 1952 and 1956. On the 1st of January 1953, the £5 note was issued. It was blue in color and it featured Queen Elizabeth and mining. On the reverse was an image of the Victoria Falls and a Cecil John Rhodes watermark. The £5 note was printed between 1953 and 1956. Now, just to put things into perspective, bread was around 3 to 4 pences a loaf, so £5 could buy you 300 loaves of bread in the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. On the 15th of April 1953, the £10 note was issued. It was brown in color. It featured a portrait of Queen Elizabeth and a lion, and the reverse side of the note was grey in color and it featured elephants. It was printed between 1953 and 1956. Now, following the dissolution of Rhodesia and Nyasaland on the 31st of December 1963, Southern Rhodesia did not immediately introduce brand new currency. Instead, it continued using the existing Rhodesia and Nyasaland pound notes, the 10 shillings, £1, £5 and £10 for a transitional period. To manage this, the newly established Reserve Bank of Rhodesia, created in 1964, took over as the issuing authority and began replacing the older Bank of Rhodesia and Nyasaland notes, and issued its own notes. Now, in 1965, Ian Smith declared the unilateral Declaration of Independence from Britain. This was a statement adopted by the Cabinet of Rhodesia on the 11th of November 1965, announcing that Rhodesia, a British Crown colony in Southern Africa that had governed itself since 1923, now regarded itself as an independent sovereign state. The Rhodesian dollar was introduced on the 17th of February 1970, roughly 2 weeks before the declaration of a republic on the 2nd of March 1970. It replaced the Rhodesian pound at a rate of $2 to £1. The dollar proved to be a strong currency, at parity with the pound sterling, right up to the very end of Rhodesia in 1980. There were 3 notes that were issued on the 17th of February 1970. The $1, $2 and $10 notes. The $1 note was blue in color and it featured a Rhodesian coat of arms and a Zimbabwe bird on the front and the balancing rocks of Epworth, which was a shift away from previous notes which featured Queen Elizabeth. On the reverse side, it featured Cecil John Rhodes watermark and tobacco, which is still a cash crop in Zimbabwe. The $2 note was red in color and it featured the Rhodesian coat of arms, a flame lily flower, and the balancing rocks. On the reverse side was an image of the Victoria Falls. The $10 note featured a sable antelope and it was grey in color. On the reverse side was an image of Great Zimbabwe and a Cecil John Rhodes watermark. Now, all 3 notes were printed between 1972 and 1978. On the 16th of October 1972, the $5 note was issued. It was brown in color and it featured a giraffe, and on the reverse side, lions. It was printed between 1972 and 1978. The Rhodesian dollar notes were slightly altered following the establishment of Zimbabwe Rhodesia, which was a short-lived unrecognized sovereign state that existed from the 1st of June 1979 to the 18th of April 1980, which was led by Abel Muzorewa, Josiah Gumede, and Ian Smith. Though it lacked international recognition, The design of the notes remained the same. The only difference was Cecil John Rhodes' watermark was replaced with the Zimbabwe bird. Now, following the independence of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwean dollar was introduced in 1980 to directly replace the Rhodesian dollar, which had been introduced in 1970 at par 1:1, at a similar value to the US dollar. Now, the first batch of notes were issued on the 15th of April 1981 to 14th of April 1982. Now, these included a $2 note, which was blue in color, and it featured the balancing rocks of Epworth, a feature that was on previous Rhodesian era notes, an image of Cape Buffalo. All the notes were signed by Desmond Krog, who was the interim governor till 1983. The notes also were written Salisbury 1980. This was later changed. The note also featured an image of the Zimbabwean bird watermark, just like previous Rhodesian era notes. On the reverse side of the note featured an image of the Kariba Dam and a tiger fish. The $5 note was green in color, and it featured a zebra and the balancing rocks of Epworth, and the same features on the $2 notes. On the reverse side, it featured farm workers in a village. The $10 note was red in color, and it featured sable antelope, and the same features as the other notes. On the reverse side, it featured the eternal flame at the National Heroes Acre and the city of Harare in the background. The $20 note was blue in color, and it featured a giraffe to indicate how long you had to work to earn it. Just kidding. On the reverse side, it featured an elephant and the Victoria Falls, which was also on previous Rhodesian notes. Now, at the time of its introduction, the Zimbabwean dollar was worth more than the US dollar. In the official exchange market, one Zimbabwean dollar was $1.47 US.